with Oleg. Jisoo Kim, one of the winners. Please, Jisoo. Beth Capdaferro, one of the jury members for the European Young Talent. Monica Marinova, one of the winners in the European edition. And Willem Huberts, also one of the winners. And this second panel will be moderated by Ana Ramos, the director of the Fundación Mies van der Rohe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ana Sala, for conducting the event so nicely this afternoon. I hope the sound is okay. Yeah, we have named this second panel New European Bauhaus. Is that how we will live together? Because we would like to address some of the topics that are challenging us. Of course, the curator of the Biennale de Venezia, by the way, we are very pleased to be a collateral event of the Venice Biennale of Architecture. And that's why we want to get in depth into the question proposed in this edition. Same than the YTAA, the Venice Biennale has had to overcome many difficulties these last 2 years, and we are happy that this is finally taking place and that we all could gather together. Also because, and this is just a brief introduction, when we decided that the Venice Biennale was the place to celebrate the YTAA gathering and debates, is because we understand this is a really global event, and Venice becomes the global city these days, and the YTAA, as you have witnessed before, has a global ambition with an European roots, but a global ambition. So Venice is kind of the place that welcomes all of us. The other topic is the New European Bauhaus. We already had this introduction from a member of the cabinet of Ms. Maria Gabriel, and as Europeans, we are now having this discussion on what is it and what it is not. So I would like also to address some of those questions to you. But I would start with you, Beth Capdaferro. You were a member of the YTAA jury, together with Rosario and with Oleg and with Martin, they are all here. You are a founding partner of Bosch Capdaferro. You are mainly practicing architects. You're based in Girona, Spain. And you studied at the Barcelona School of Architecture. I'm naming the schools because, as you all know, this YTAA is also about constellation of architecture schools all over the globe, and each one has its own maybe identity or ways of doing, so it's nice to bring the names of the schools also to the stage, because the students or architects, young architects, are also an outcome of the professors they had and of the schools where they spent so many years. So it's not only what you have inside, but also what you received or what you did not receive, which is also something we can discuss. So when you studied in Barcelona, you also teach. And there's something special for us, it's that in 2011, 10 years ago, you and your partner won the EU-Mies Award for Emerging Architecture with the Collage House, which was a housing project in the city center in the old town, and it was about reuse and traditional construction. It was about old and new. Was it an avant la lettre, new European Bauhaus? Or regarding that project, what would you advise to the European Commission about the new European Bauhaus project?
I first would like to thank the Mies van der Rohe Foundation and the European Commission to have all of us here. It's really been a pleasure to meet after all these online connections to do the jury. Yeah, in some way I have the feeling that as humans, we have entered a really mechanicist period of our societies. Not recently, a pair of centuries ago. And I guess that we all feel, and I was listening to the explanation of the students that talked just before us, we all feel that we have to go back to the deepest sense of being human. And this is related, in my opinion, to the most simple things. And sometimes when you live in a smaller place, like we do, we live in a small city that is more related to the agricultural dynamics, to the old professions, maybe we have kept memory of certain essential things of being human that are a lot of times related to how we deal with natural resources. And maybe this should be one of the strong roots for the future, to bring our gaze back to these essential things that have always been structural for our habitats within this planet. And I don't know, to say it in a very short way, maybe it's like going from the plot to the universe, no? Our gaze should not be limited to the plot, to this abstract thing that has certain dimensions, certain potential of building, certain shape. But we should bring our gaze back to the universe in the widest sense we could imagine it.
That's very nice. Always when we hear about the new European Bauhaus and we are told about this triangle of beauty, sustainability, and togetherness, beauty is always this spiritual side, or this part which connects us with, our story and our roots as human beings. So it's always that beauty is not the physical beauty, but the beauty inside us. So that's always the very inspiring thing. So I like this concept of the universe, no, in the holistic approach. I will follow with another of the jury members, Oleg Drozdov. You were also member of the jury of YTAA. By the way, you jury members have met physically today in this event. We are lucky that you could finally touch each other and see your real height and your body dimension. And we are happy that this could happen, because being an online jury is not a very pleasant thing, we know. It's difficult to discuss, it's difficult to really see, to get a quick impression on things. So thank you, and we are happy that we could pay you back a little bit by organizing this gathering. Oleg, also you were saying that maybe in a week or so you won't be able anymore to travel outside of your home country because of red light of COVID. So good that at this moment we are physically together. You are architect, founding partner of Drozdov and Partners. You were trained as an architect at Kharkiv University of Civil Engineering. But then you pursued also a career as an artist after that. So you were trained in this engineering school as an architect, you became an artist, and finally you founded 4 or 5 years ago the Kharkiv School of Architecture in Kharkiv, Ukraine, your hometown. You're really a Bauhausler, no? You are all in one.
Yeah.
So you have probably thought
Thank you so much for the
of
introduction.
this new Bauhaus thing. What do you?
Yeah, for me, it's if we want to change environment, you could study from started from study environment. Yeah, exactly from build, because our school is much more about the building community around in the city. Yeah, involved all community into school and interacted during all this educational process, and the school as a part of the city. This was like a first idea to open school. But I feel we live in very period of transition, and so many things changed. We got a lot of experience during pandemic, and I could say many things of our understanding of mission of our profession and mission of spaces quite changed dramatically. I think some lifestyles and something against global suspending type of living, we are very much localized after this period of 2 years, and this rustification bring for us many things which we referred during this period, and we were thinking about many things about quality of environment around us, about mission of spaces, about what's mean for us ownership and being. It's completely things which would become and be against each other, because it's to create of great sujet for lives, and to create just spaces. It's completely things which against each other, and we could see to the crisis in China now. There are just spaces which was driven by speculation or become by idea of ownership. It's over already, and we have to think, because all these parts of environment, it's our resources which not enough, and I think everyone understood that our spaces have to be changed, and a lot of qualities, and we rethink our values of our life, and how spaces to have to react on this new lifestyle.
Yeah. It's about changing spaces and changing the way we understand the spaces. I think the three projects that we can comment now on the winners of the YTAA. I could start on Willem, for instance. Willem Hubrecht, who's one of the YTAA winner. You studied in the Faculty of Engineering Science in the University of Leuven in Belgium, and following with the transnational global thing, your diploma project is focused in Ayacucho, Peru. It's a project which is named Off the Grid, and it's about redefining the urban Andes through Ayacucho's water urbanism. So you're talking about resources, and resources that are crucial water is one of them, and connecting water and management of water with urbanism, which is actually something very old in the tradition of urbanism, but it's actually very new to put it in the center of an urbanism project like the one you presented. Can you please explain us a little bit about your project and what would you recommend out of your experience?
Yeah. You must know that Ayacucho is actually situated in the Rio Cachi basin. It's like a big river, and it's a huge area. And we started actually the research by studying the area and how people live there, how they use water, and also trying to understand not only the way they're using it now and how they react to it, but also how they used to live or cohabitate with the water, like the former pre-colonial cultures, like the Incas and stuff, how they reacted to it and how they built Andenes, which is the name of Andes. It comes from Andenes, which is like a terraced landscape. And trying also to understand how the culture of water is actually related to it. Like the whole idea of Pachamama, like the mountain of, which is Mother Earth, she gives the water to us. And so we actually started not from the city itself, but more from the whole region. And then we tried to relate it to the way they're building now. And we focused on the periphery of the city, where a lot of the people who lived in the region are actually moving to, because they're trying to find work and they cannot live there anymore. So actually we try to reconnect the new city dwellers to their old indigenous culture of water. And that's actually an interesting relation, because you can really try to define spaces of water collection, of water buffering and stuff, and try to implement it in the way they're housing now, because now what they do is like a very post-colonial system of adding the grid, and which is a very bad way if it's concerned about water, because all the water just rushes down and you cannot stop it. So actually we try to implement these very small scale, very understandable small techniques that are often have a word like which is related to the Quechua language, like the old Inca language, and it's actually interesting because it makes the communication a lot different, if you can really refer to that. And then, we try to evolve some projects.
It's amazing how important water is for all practicing architects ever. Is concern number one. You don't want water, unexpected water inside your buildings or under your roofs, and how little we talk about it and this. But I know when you just met the student, the winners, the young architects, because also it's the first time that you have the opportunity to meet together. I think you were wishing to share something about Peru with Willem, right? You have a experience there also, I think. You were like super interested in this because you were...
No, the case is not so much about Peru precisely, but about the management of water, no? Because for two reasons. First of all is because after doing my architecture studies, I did a master in landscape architecture, and it was so healthy for myself, because it's like looking at architecture from the other way around and understanding that it's nothing related to designing inert bodies, but at the contrary, designing open systems in relationship to the forces of nature and to the dynamics of nature, and of course water. And now going back one second to the tradition and to, I mean, sometimes I have the feeling that we have forgotten that we were all agriculture and farmers not long ago, no? And agricultural workers. And if there was no water, there was no house in the landscape. I mean, it's the origin of every human settlement. I would say it's the only element that has to be there For the rest, you can take profit of other invisible forces in a very intelligent way, like winds, like so many natural energies, sun, all of them. But water is absolutely crucial. So from the very first moment when I saw Wilhelm's project, I was impacted in a very positive way, because I realized that the focus of his interest was life, the origin of life. In fact, human life comes from water.
You're right,
also.
and actually, yeah, we cannot produce water, yeah, so that's...
It also has very devastating effects. I mean, if you look at what happened this summer in my home country, like people died because of improper water management. Houses were flushing away, and it's exactly the same problem that they had in Peru, but we're not managing it in the right way. And I think that's interesting, because now we are learning from the Peruvian way of managing water and bringing it back to Europe. And I think that's a very good way of exchanging information and ideas and techniques.
Sorry, just wanted to say that listening to you, we say lots of times with my partner Ramon that we cannot unlearn.
Yeah.
And we have spent like a century unlearning certain essential things that we should remember. And now it's time to go back to them.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, and make me think of tabula rasa. We are trying to unlearn some of the attitudes of the 20th century that maybe came for good reasons, but we were too mechanical in the adoption of it, no? And going back to this new Bauhaus, this tabula rasa is not a concept, is not a good concept anymore, and more we see projects dealing with this. And I would now go to Ji-Soo Kim, because your project is kind of rejecting tabula rasa. Your project is based on, well, sorry, I didn't introduce you. You were one of the winners of the Asia edition of YTAA 2020. You graduated at Hanyang University School of Architecture in Seoul, Korea. And your project is named Yulgok Street. And it's about contemporary values of the old architecture. And that is in a context which is maybe even more rapidly changing, which is some of the big metropolitan in Asia are really fast in their changes at a speed that sometimes seen from this lovely Venice is difficult to believe. So tell us about your project a little bit, and how do you imagine all these stories?
Actually, my project is about how to restore between the two heritages. And in Korea, most of the heritage projects are given in restoring the original forms, following the original forms. However, I thought there should be more possibilities to see in new ways, another ways to restore, and for maybe in my generation or the next generation, what would be worthy, not just following the original form. And as the city soul where I'm living in is really changing rapidly and really fast, city is really fast, always people want more faster, and it comes to architecture it is always changing also. The places where I love to have some coffee, maybe next month it becomes to restaurant or other internet cafe, or I don't know what other programs could be in. And in my project, I wanted to show also how the city soul is changed. Like there is so many architectural styles, and even many architects don't know like what is the Korean architecture style. But as a student in graduation, I just wanted to think about how I see the city soul, and I just wanted to say there is many possibilities to build in other architecture styles. And also when it comes to the heritage restoration projects, it could be this way, and maybe how about this way, and that was the main message like I really wanted to say about, and what I wanted to show, like what I learned in these 5 years courses. Yeah, and that's all. Yeah.
Do you think, now you mentioned what you learned in these 5-year courses, do you think you, and this is maybe for all of you, and it's a question that maybe I will rephrase later, no? If you were prepared during your years of study, and there is this, at the very end, when you do your diploma project, many of you, and also this is something I've heard before, discover, I mean, you get deep and deep into the knowledge of something and realize all of a sudden that you still need to learn more. Yeah? Did you feel that, or?
Yeah, actually, I felt that like in the graduation project, like I really wanted to like work after the graduate and as a profession. And however, the more I study and having a research in my projects and doing the actual works in the office, I felt there's some more things that I really want to study or research, or some other things that I want to know more. And I think it is always changing myself and what I want to know about more, and yeah.
Yeah, well, Ms. Oyatalai, before she said we are educating together, we are learning together here, and it's obvious that we always kind of want to know more and learn from the others. That's the good thing of these changes. Your urban regeneration project, because it was a street and it had the palace and also another heritage building, and then you created this new street in the middle, or you dealt with the identity of that street. And this moves me to Monica Merinova. Your project was very much about, in my opinion, about identity and, of course, about urban and collective spaces. I will now go to that. You graduated at the School of Art, Architecture and Design at the London Metropolitan University, although you are a Bulgarian national and you are now back to your hometown. But the project was based in Stoke-on-Trent in the UK, and it was a stage for the city. And if we go back to this triangle of New European Bauhaus, I think your project was very much about togetherness, because your aim was to create a space where people could gather together, no? It's a city that lack of opportunities for collective meeting. You also mentioned that in the project of water, about the opportunity, when you collect water, it's an opportunity for meeting others and the neighbors and so. But tell us about this need of urban space for democracy, because you were mentioning this in your project.
I think the first aspect of togetherness that the project tries to tackle is okay? This always happens. The first aspect of togetherness that the project tries to tackle Okay, one more time. The first aspect that the project tries to tackle in this space is that Stoke-on-Trent, a post-industrial city in England, has these conditions which are probably typical of many cities in a similar condition. It has two phases. One is the industrial phase, and it is probably 90% of the built environment in Stoke, which was very active a century ago. And at the moment, this phase and its buildings have shrunk to 5%, whereas they have paid for everything that was built there. At the same time, what this industry paid for are the public buildings, which at this time housed markets, cultural events, gatherings, and a very vibrant life, which again have disappeared, firstly because of the depopulation of the spaces, but also because the buildings built at this time are already obsolete because of the way they're built. Although they are monumental, they are not responding to the way we inhabit spaces. So the first act of togetherness is searching for ways to extract the good things from both of these phases, the efficiency of industry and the civic presence and pride of inhabiting a place with rich history, which is inherent in public buildings. And combining these in one space allows people who inhabit this space to be really aware of their own history and how their existence and contributing to this place relates to both of them. So this is this aspect of togetherness that I read.
Yeah, yeah. You were before also telling me about, and now we can move to what is happening now, because we have been talking on what happened in your diploma projects, which are processes that took place 3 years ago, probably, or 4 years ago, that you already graduated, if I'm not wrong. So now you are in the next step of your life. And I would like to know what of what you had then is now still in your, well, tell us a bit, what are you doing now professionally or on research or whatever, and how, is it connected somehow to your diploma project?
Even though it might sound maybe a bit general, this is what I have found since then, even though currently I don't work on such large, ambitious project.
Sure.
For example, I'm working on some small urban public spaces in a neighborhood somewhere in my hometown, which is not much larger than 200,000 to 300,000 people. And maybe connecting to the topic of our conversation about Bauhaus and what is it that we share, I think the methodology that drove this entire 1 year of creating this university project is, in one instance, in the end, maybe you need a public building. Maybe your client needs a public building, which is what happens in the university project. And currently, my client wants a garden and they want a space to walk their dogs. But what, in both cases, the designer wants from this space is he wants this space to educate people about the local history. He wants to teach them a way to keep their environment and to take care of it. He wants to teach them maybe, well, currently about hygiene. And then what you do with the project itself, the material thing, has to find a solution to teach people these values. So shared values translated through different materiality of the project.
That's a good, that's a good summary of what architecture is about, because there are all these ambitions when you write your thesis or your research works. There are so many ambitions, but at the end, what we have is, as architects, we have to mostly build spaces or create spaces, and all those ambitions are focused and concentrated in that small, sometimes physical space. William, what are you into now, and what comes from the diploma project, or what is new in your life?
The same boss. That's for sure. My professor is actually now my boss. So that's
okay. Lucky your professor.
And then I'm actually working both on more master planning and urban scale projects, and on the other hand, architecture. And I think that there is a big difference. I mean, there's a lot of compatibilities, and you're thinking in space, and you're trying to solve problems in space. But I think what is different with more urban planning and the fact that you're not really building something is that you really have to communicate a vision that is not, I mean, the end result is not a building, but it's a vision. It's something that you have to communicate by drawing, by building models, by having a text written. Sometimes it works really well. And I think that's really interesting, because you really have to go down to the most important essence of what you want to say in order to talk to people about the project and to have their correct feedback. I think that's something I also learned in the thesis project, because we really had to work with hand and feet to try to explain things, because my Spanish is not that fluent. And then for the architecture, yeah, I mean, just the fact that I really like to draw buildings and make concepts for buildings, and I think that's not really something we did in our thesis, because in the end result was very immaterial, but that's just something that I like to do. It's not really resonating that much. I mean, the way of thinking is, and the fact that you try to bring as much of expertise together, I think it's very important. And the sort of critical reflections that you have to make while designing a building is something that I really took with me, but yeah. It's a double answer.
It is, yeah, we were before also talking about the power of communication, because sometimes we need to communicate through what we build, but in many other times, and this Biennale of Architecture is the cathedral for that, we do communicate our thoughts or our concepts through drawings, installations, models, and they are sometimes so extremely powerful. No? So you are all very gifted, and all the winners of the YTAA and also of the Asia edition, you're very skilled in communicating, and that's something probably very important for any juror when he's assessing any project. A good communication is key, because there's a good concept, but then that concept needs to go from the brain of the person who had the concept to the brain of the person who's judging it. But that skill is not only good to get awards, but also to communicate to politicians, for instance, to policymakers, to people who can really make the difference. You were, Monica, before mentioning us something connected to this. Yeah? Can you recall it?
I was invited to participate in an event in Basel, which was on the topic of public spaces and how we learn from them. And earlier I was sharing how powerful it was that the director of the Architecture Museum was saying that this exhibition, although consisting entirely of building projects, is entirely not about architects, and how he used this exactly drawings and projects and models to invite the public, and in particular the members of parliament there, to share with them ways to improve the public space. And he used the agency of these models to communicate something that currently doesn't happen there at all, but could be of and is a vision of what could happen in the city.
That is an important agency that architects, urban planners, designers, creative minds have the power to do, and is an opportunity we have to deliver a message to our policymakers or to the politicians or to whoever is responsible or in charge to shape the future. And this will be kind of a wrap-up ending question. We have been asked on how will we live together. I would ask, like, each of you a short thought on how should we live together, Oleg?
Yeah, all professional life, we are doing instructions for everyone how to live, and this is like a period of domination of architects in this particular role has to be changed. Yeah, and we more becoming some kind of part of moderation of big discussion, because we are one of most synthetic type of professionalist. That's why this listen and interpret and organize these different different actors involved in this discussion. This is our main role for next decades, I think, and much less about spatial engineering, because it's now quite easy. Then is your the imagination of life is already exists. Yeah, this is like technology will be take maybe a majority of our time is over, and we have to reinvest our time to this kind of communication. And absolutely, it's our future of our profession.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Oleg. Kim, what do you think? How will we live together? Or
well, actually, I think how will we live together means how will we live in a better place. And I think it is important to to make people's awareness of they can actually, the single person personally can change the city, and it means they can enjoy the city and they can make the city, whole city, like playable. I think it is a more fundamental thing to how to think the city make people to engage. They can actually awareness of they can actually change. Yes.
yeah, good, very good point. Willem, yourself, how will we live together? Is it about water?
Yeah,
in the water?
I just wanted to refer to that. I think we should. I mean, living together is not a very. We should not maybe see it from an anthropocentric point of view, not only from us as human beings, but also like the whole ecosystems around us. I think that's something we should really be aware of. But in realizing this, for example, in Belgium or in Flanders, we have this problem of urban sprawl, which is like really building all of the land full, where we have a 15% of our area is built. I mean, it's not letting water in. I think that's a very important thing to think of. How can we try to change this tendency of keeping building in open areas? And I think then we should try to find how we can live closer together and trying to let more land open. But at the same time, we should also try not to think too much in our specialized specialization of architects, just talking with architects on how other people should live. I think we should really listen to the dreams that people have of what kind of space they want to inhabit, and try to really find these qualities that they're trying to look for, and try to combine them in a different story that maybe is something else. It's more dense. It's more able to share things, and at the same time try to make it a very positive story. And therefore, again, we need to communicate in a very not in a very specialized way with all these vocabulary that people don't understand, but really try to communicate with people. I think good architecture is architecture if my mom understands it, then it's a good project. Because, I mean, she's not an architect. Hi, Mom.
Monica.
What I could add is, while remembering that we can't, and knowing that we can't unlearn, to be very aware also that we can't completely learn about everything, and be very open to giving power to someone else who might know something very specific about something we have no idea about, and this way achieve this aspect of togetherness. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. That you have the difficult task of closing the role of a question.
I guess I will say like two things. First one is a deep and sincere sense of ethic when developing each one of us our tasks, our quotidian tasks, sometimes simple ones, sometimes really complex ones, but keeping always this sense of ethic that I was glad to find in all the projects that became winners of the award. And the second one is keeping as much as we can the sense of humanity, of being humans.
That's beautiful, Beth. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really share with someone in the panel before the idea that good future is coming. If we have a young generation like you, we are released that the new blood is coming with fresh air and much more of empathy and ethics that unfortunately we have foreseen. So thank you for being such a nice, good future. And thank you everyone for sharing this time with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, Beth, Monica, William, sorry, because I'm in the middle, because it's a camera here in YouTube, Jisoo, Kim, and Oleg. And now we will make a break of 30 minutes to prepare everything for the granting moment. And so see you in 30 minutes. Thank you very much.